So, folks, I got a hell of a story for you today. We're going to talk about the Tiffany Slaton situation, which started as a missing hiker story that gripped the nation. She was missing for 24 days. During that time, there were 13 heavy snowstorms in the area that she was missing. Everybody thought she was dead. Then she was found in an unlocked cabin at a closed mountain resort where they leave the cabin unlocked for this very purpose. If someone's lost in the mountains, they can seek refuge and hopefully survive. Once the snow was plowed, like 10 feet from the road, the guy, I think he owns the resort, goes in to check on the resort, sees shoes outside of the cabin, finds Tiffany Slaton. Oh my gosh, she's all right. She survived. Holy crap. And then 2 days later, after she was found safe and sound, rescued, now this is up to 2 days ago, she did a press conference. And that's where the whole thing took a turn. And I'll link the press conference. It's 43 minutes. I'll link that in the description so you can watch it. Well, I'll put in at least one clip in this episode.
Nothing was leaving my body, and it's one of the number one killers for people is actually just trying to not have problems in the bathroom.
But you should watch the whole thing. So she gets rescued. She'd been missing 24 days. Crazy. Everybody's thrilled. Can't believe she made it. 2 days later, does a press conference, and I would say 80% of the comments on the various press conference videos from different channels that have been posted, I would say 80% of the comments are, this doesn't make sense, this is not believable, this is total horseshit, this feels like Sherry Papini all over again, this is not even remotely believable. There was a GoFundMe that was set up before she was found by her mother, saying things like, when she's found, this will go towards hospital and recovery bills, and also while we're here in California trying to figure out where our daughter is, we need some financial help as well. The GoFundMe made it up to $23,000, and then yesterday, so a day or two after the press conference, which left everybody with more questions than ever, yesterday her mom made donations unavailable on the GoFundMe. So you can no longer donate money, even though she's back and is ready for the big recovery process. You can no longer donate money, but you can still leave a kind word. So, this is very early on in the story. I'm not going to go in too hard on old Tiffany Slaton yet because no one knows what's happening right now, but let's go through the story and talk about things as they come up. Okay, so her parents said in an interview that they were a little bit surprised that she was going on this e-bike trip alone in the Sierra Nevada mountains, where the plan was to have her e-bike tow a little wagon stroller thing with all of her gear behind her, e-bike in the mountains to this hot springs, hang out in the hot springs for a while, and then come back. It was supposed to be a 3-day solo vacation. And when her dad said in an interview, when he was like, why, you're going just into the mountains solo? And she described it as, I gotta do it. It's a bucket list trip. All right. And so she sets off. And the first thing that I don't understand is she leaves on May 14th on what was supposed to be a 3-day vacation in the mountains. Her parents say they talked to her the last time on May 20th. Possibly even was the 21st, but May 20th, 21st, they were in contact with her. I don't know if they through text or a call, but they said, and it's also in the the GoFundMe description that they talked to her about a week after she started. And so how did a 3-dayer turn into a week, and then communication with her parents at that point ended? And then the story goes, the first day, I guess, of after the communication was lost with her parents, she says that she fell off a cliff, hit her head so hard that she was unconscious for 2 hours. One knee was dislocated. She was able to pop it back in on her own. Pretty cool. The other leg was so injured that it had to be splinted. I looked it up. Being unconscious for 2 hours is anything over 30 minutes is considered a traumatic brain injury. So to start off, I'm not sure. I don't understand how the 3-day trip turned into a week trip, and then she didn't say when she contacted her parents, I'm in trouble, I need help. I'm not positive how it turned into that week, but all of a sudden things really went to hell after she talked to her parents. And so, according to her, she woke up after falling off the cliff after 2 hours, resets her knee, splints the leg, and then at some point, I don't know if it was after falling off the cliff or later when she went through an avalanche or 2 rock slides, but it kind of sounds like it was maybe the first initial falling off the cliff. She lost her tent and both sleeping bags. But again, losing the tent and both sleeping bags could have happened later, I guess, with the avalanche or the 2 rock slides that she survived. It's a little bit hard for me to believe in a life or death survival situation in the mountains, which she will get to it, but she does have some survival skills and seems to be interested in wilderness survival and that whole genre. I find it a little bit hard to believe that if she did lose it on the initial fall off the cliff, the tent and the 2 sleeping bags, or even later with the avalanche and the rock slides, that she would just walk away. Because in a situation like that in the mountains, it's snowing pretty much every other day. There's a blizzard. During that time, there were 13, I don't know if I mentioned that, 13 heavy snowstorms during the time that the 24 days where she was out there. And so chalking it up to, guess I can't find my tent and sleeping bags. I'm just going to walk away. And just that sucks for me. Seems a little bit unbelievable to me. Myself, I would be searching those things as hard as I could. I wouldn't leave the area. Losing the tent and sleeping bags brings the rate of survival way down, and also survival gets a lot more brutal and terrible. Even if you do make it without the tent and sleeping bags, it's going to be a lot more suffering and awfulness. But that's how the story goes. She lost the tent and both sleeping bags. So, and she's talking about all this in the press conference. Oh yeah, another thing that's notable, that once she got back, her blood work was remarkably good. All of her levels, from barely eating, she ate leeks. She's a good forager. She ate leeks and drank water, so you'd think when she got back there'd be a lot of weight loss and all of her levels would be off and she'd have to slowly get her nutrition back. But they said, the medical professionals looking after her said that all of her readings were remarkably good. And also, she only lost 10 pounds throughout the ordeal. Her skin looked good, her hands, everything looked nice and fresh and smooth. Okay, so in that period, from falling off the cliff, unconscious for 2 hours, traumatic brain injury, both legs injured, losing the tent and the sleeping bags, one thing that in the press conference that I kept thinking she was going to talk about was how did she not freeze to death? Because she was really talkative about how she's a permaculturalist and really has some good foraging skills. And she would answer questions like, well, maybe my skills are just that good. And that over and over again, she brought up how she's a good forager, she knows how to do it, and that she was able to find a bunch of leeks, which are like onion type things, and she survived off of these leeks once her food that she brought for the trip ran out. What she didn't mention, which if you've taken any survival class or done any of this type of stuff yourself, really the main struggle with her situation would have been dying of hypothermia. If you're in the mountains and it's blizzarding every other night and you don't have a tent or a sleeping bag, by far the most urgent problem you need to solve is, even before water, is how am I not going to freeze to death? Are you going to build a massive fire? And she only had a knife and a lighter. And so to cut the amount of firewood needed to keep yourself alive in a lot of these situations night after night is utterly brutal, back-breaking work, especially with the knife. If you have a big axe and a saw, it's still brutal, back-breaking work. Think of an Outdoor Boys video. Me and my wife had a good laugh thinking about Luke from Outdoor Boys, watching her press conference about how she did it, because that's one of the types of videos that Luke from Outdoor Boys did, was the surviving a night in Alaska in a blizzard with no tent and no sleeping bags. And boiler kicked on. Let me close this door. And not to mention anything in the whole press conference, did you build a shelter? Did you build a massive fire? I don't know how cold it got. If it snowed that many times, it was at least in the 30s. But maybe the type of year it didn't get too far below freezing, and I guess it's possible if you have an incredibly warm down coat and then rain gear, it's possible to just sit there and suffer out the night. Probably wouldn't sleep all that much, but there was no talk of how'd you do that much firewood. And then she survived off melting snow for the water. And anybody that's melted snow for their drinking water, it's the slowest, most unrewarding, frustrating process, because it takes a lot of snow to get a little bit of water, and the amount of firewood that you have to put together to melt the snow, it's barely worth it, because you get all hot and sweaty and more dehydrated getting all the firewood, dragging it to the fire, cutting it down, that you're sweaty and more tired, only to boil a bunch of snow for a tiny bit of water. And so how she didn't freeze to death is one of the biggest questions, in my opinion. And at some point during the ordeal, like I said earlier, she survived an avalanche and 2 rock slides. 4 days after her parents, 3 or 4 days, I should say, after her parents last talked to her, which was a week after she got out there, citizens in the area reported seeing her. So I guess it's possible that they saw her, but she didn't see them. But you would think if you've fallen off a cliff, traumatic brain injury where you were unconscious for hours, both legs are injured, you've lost your tent, you've lost your sleeping bags, seeing somebody would be a total godsend, and you would probably do everything possible to scream and yell if she did see them to try to be rescued. But that didn't happen. And so the days just went on. And she said that the way that she was able to do it was she's very physically able, and that she's a pre-Olympian in archery, and she said over and over in the press conference that she's a high-level archery coach is one of her gigs that she does, and that I can't remember the exact quote, but it was kind of funny. She said she's like one of the top archers on the island that she's from, and that's kind of one of her things. But she said on a normal day when they're training for archery, they walk equivalent to 5 miles, and it kind of toughens you up, and that's how she was able to cover so much ground during this ordeal. She does look young and fit, so I can believe that she could put an impressive amount of miles behind her. She walked anywhere from like 20 to, I think, 80, or maybe it was between 40 and 80 miles. I think that's what it was. I think if you were able to walk like a straight line from where she started to where she was finally rescued at the cabin resort, it would be 40 miles. But since you can't go in a straight line in rugged, treacherous country, she possibly covered anywhere between 40 and 80 miles, which is a very impressive physical feat. And not nothing, especially if you're on a diet of wild leeks. And as you get more dehydrated and malnourished, the cold gets worse. That's what I was thinking. It's possible if she had really warm clothes and rain gear that seal out all the moisture, you could just lay in the fetal position maybe and make it through a night if it's not getting too cold, because you're staying dry, you're insulated. It's going to be a horrible, absolutely miserable night, but it is possible. Let's say the temperature got down to like 35, 33, and then she was able to get out of the snow somehow under a ledge or something, and then just sit there and be miserable all night. But as the nights go on, she was out there for 24 total. As the nights go on and you're not eating enough and you're not drinking enough and you're getting exhausted, it's hard to stay warm. You would get really cold. Let me open this door. Okay, and so she says on day around 24, she made it to the cabin. It was unlocked. Obviously, she was thrilled. She's probably going to make it now, she's thinking. And she's at the cabin. That day, they were able to plow the roads to get to the cabin. 10 feet of snow gets plowed. I think it's the guy that either owns the resort or manages it, wants to go check on things, gets there, sees her shoes. They find her. Oh my God, she's alive. This is crazy. Everybody thought she was a goner for sure. That long, that many blizzards. Hallelujah, she's alive. She takes a picture like this, looking really good. And the first thing I noticed about that picture, maybe she had gloves on the whole time, but to get enough firewood and to process it small enough to get a fire going that many days in a row, if you didn't wear gloves, your hands would be absolutely torn up and calloused, and it would look like you worked extremely hard for weeks. Her hands looked really fresh and good. And so she took like the famous "I made it" picture. Everybody's thrilled, obviously. And then 2 days later, the infamous press conference happened, which is now 2 days behind us. And the thing about the press conference is she was wearing sunglasses, which I looked it up, and she said that she was diagnosed with snow blindness from being out there in the snow for that long. And it is normal for doctors to say, wear some sunglasses for a while your eyes recuperate. But it does come off as a little weird. But even weirder than the sunglasses in the press conference, this is 2 days after she was rescued, but she's wearing like a blanket around her, which it looks like with the sunglasses and the blanket that she's wearing in the press conference, it looks like she wanted it to seem like the press conference was 50 minutes after that she was rescued. It's like, it's been a couple days. Why not throw a hoodie on? Why like the still like I was just rescued blanket? But again, some people, maybe she just likes blankets. So just even the look of the press conference threw some people. But then once she starts saying she fell off the cliff, knocked out for 2 hours, dislocated one knee, got it, pop it back in herself. The other leg needed to be splinted, and then that started the between 40 and 80 mile walk through treacherous country. That starts to be a little bit hard to believe. And then you get into, okay, you didn't have a tent or sleeping bags. How did you not freeze to death? Didn't mention that. Mentioned over and over again that she has impressively good foraging skills because she's a permaculturalist, and she has impressive physical skills from being a pre-Olympian archer. Another slightly unbelievable part of the story is she says she has ballerina syndrome, where she can't keep her heels on the ground, but luckily she was able to find some high heels made out of leather that she was able to use as her high-heeled hiking boots. Yeah. And so there's that. Probably one of the things in the press conference that it's definite that she was just talking out of her ass. The whole press conference, she kind of had this tone. You would think she was a survival expert teaching a seminar or a class with her confident tone and with her kind of like she was joking about things and ending questions with, well, maybe my foraging skills are just that good. And everyone's like, ha, 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 ha. But there's one part where she's talking about her recovery process, and she says something like, you know, the number one, people don't know, but the number one killer with a situation like this is actually once people get back, their digestion doesn't get going again, and they have trouble in the bathroom, and that's what ends up killing them. And I looked it up, and when she said that, I was like, wait, what? I have taken, like, through Cub Scouts and summer camps, I took a bunch of wilderness survival classes and seminars. This was probably my favorite genre. One of my favorite genres of stories growing up was the wilderness survival story. I've pretty much seen all of the documentaries, read all of the books, both fiction and nonfiction. And so to compare this story to all of that, I've done my own mountaineering. I've told this story on this channel where my wife and I did a 4-day backpacking trip in Peru, which we hiked over this mountain, and at the top of it, we were at 15,900 feet, which was extremely high. And something on that trip got a little bit hairy, where the conditions at the top were really awful, and we ended up having to walk like 8 hours it ended up being like a 11, 12-hour hiking day. And it sucked and was scary. And that kind of was like the end of our big mountain hiking, me and my wife. But anyway, when I heard her say, like, you know, the number one killer is actually when people get back from doing something like this, their digestion doesn't get going again, and that's what kills them. I was thinking, wait, what? And looked it up, and not only is it not one of the number one killers, it's not a thing. It pretty much doesn't happen, and if it does, it says it's usually because of pre-existing conditions, like their organs are damaged or something else is very wrong. It pretty much doesn't happen. So when she's up there going, you know, actually, a little known fact, what people don't know is the number one killer it's like you're just talking out of your ass. I'm really happy that you got rescued and that you're safe. And even if she faked the whole thing and it's a Sherry Panini hoax, she still did, I think, some impressive, unless somehow she like didn't walk that whole way. She did some impressive physical feats and survived some really tough situations. But it's not believable. That's just where we're at right at this point. And so she does the press conference. I would guess it didn't go the way she's hoping. Think about it. She's talking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be like the next great survival story. This is going to be so amazing. And then to see all of the comments, most of which are saying this doesn't pass the sniff test, not even close. This is not believable at all. And then the next day, the mom shuts down the GoFundMe. So how did that decision come about? Are they starting to not believe her? Did she tell them? Are they seeing all of the comments on the press conference video and going, you know what, we shouldn't be accepting thousands of dollars donation? And then here we are 2 days after that, after the press conference. One thing that is going for, I think, it not being a hoax is, at least as of right now, it doesn't seem like the law enforcement in the area that found her is questioning her, or maybe they're putting on a face of, we're just so happy that we found her and she's alive and we believe her. And in the back of their mind thinking, there's going to be an investigation, you bet. But as of right now, it was all smiles and nothing. I haven't heard anything from the law enforcement in the area that there needs to be an investigation, or that, we need to figure that part of the story out. But I'll leave you with this. After listening to the press conference, here's my gut feeling, because she brought up a number of times that it sounded like she had aspirations to go to med school and maybe it didn't work out. And she said that before deciding to go on this trip, she was, quote, burnt out from doing a bunch of jobs. She mentioned that she was a high-level archery coach enough times that it almost seemed like she was maybe insecure about where she was professionally in life and wanted to build up her credentials. When someone says something over and over again that it almost comes off of it's an insecurity and they're trying to convince themselves, or it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't care. I wasn't even thinking that you weren't doing well, but you just keep saying, did I mention that I was a high-level archery coach? And I also get the feeling, her talking about her situation, that maybe the whole high-level archery coach doesn't pay enough to support her life. And so here's the gut feeling that I got. I could be totally wrong. That's okay. But here's the gut feeling, if I'm honest, what I thought after watching the press conference. I get the feeling she's 27 years old, just turned 28. She actually was rescued a day before her 28th birthday. Those can be a rough couple years, your late 20s. You're trying to figure out your place in the world. It's not your early 20s where everything is just possibilities. Now it's like, all right, well, what is happening? And it sounds like maybe she wanted to do med school. That didn't work out. She tried a bunch of jobs that really didn't work out or weren't fulfilling, or didn't make her feel like she was where she wanted to be. She said she was, quote, burnt out, and decided to go on this vacation. If it is a hoax, like a Sherry Papini type thing, I would guess it was the decision to do it was made because she wanted to flip the script, and then all of a sudden the story's different. She's this epic survivalist, tough as nails, forager that was able to find wild leeks during snowstorm after snowstorm, put her permaculturalist skills into real-life application. She said because of her Britishness that she made pine needle tea every day, and mentioned a few times that maybe it could be, or maybe other people did, that it could be a movie, maybe a TV show like Alone or something like that, that now after this heroic ordeal that she went through, she's now going to take a much more serious stab at med school. And so the feeling that I get is she was going through that normal late 20s, what the hell am I going to do? My first dream maybe didn't work out. Now I'm doing jobs that aren't fulfilling or aren't what I pictured doing. And maybe she cooked up this plan to try to get everything back on track, get some attention, get some headlines. Another bizarre part of the press conference is she talked about the person that had survived the most days in that area before her, and the verbiage that she tried to use is that person had the record before her, basically insinuating now she has the record for the most days survived in that area. So yeah, that's the story. So just really quick before I leave, the timeline. April 14th, she set out on a 3-day solo e-bike mountain trip to the hot spring. Parents talked to her the last time around the 20th, the 21st, so about a week later, lost contact with her. Citizens in the area reported seeing her around there a few days later, but she didn't call out for help or anything. Survived a fall off a cliff, traumatic brain injury, 2 leg injuries, was able to find leather high heels that she used as hiking shoes because she has ballerina syndrome. Survived an avalanche, 2 rock slides, was able to walk between 40 and 80 miles through brutal, treacherous country, survived on foraging wild leeks with her permaculturalist, is that how you say it? Training, somehow was able not to freeze to death, made it to the cabin, was rescued the day before her 28th birthday on May 14th, 2 days later, did the press conference that flipped the whole script of the story and started everybody thinking, wait, what the hell? A day or two after that, her mom shut down the GoFundMe donations, and that's currently where we are today. So it's going to be very interesting what law enforcement in the area do. Are they going to investigate it? You think they have to with as much unbelievable parts of the story. You would think they would have to, but maybe they're just going to say, you know what? At least she was found. I don't know if there's any way to prove that. Also, the blood test is a little bit hard to believe. She came back looking perfect. Didn't look haggard. Skin is looking good. Blood levels, or everything was great. So, wild stuff. I think I'm, as of right now, the only YouTube video. Once I post this, as of right now, there's no one questioning, like no creators questioning her story, because it's not going to be a great look if it all comes out to just, you know what, it's a truly unbelievable story where there's parts of it that even sound stupid, but if it all checks out, then I'm going to be the asshole. But I'm trying to get the tone where it's like, listen, this is, after that press conference, this is the way people are feeling. A lot of times if that amount of people hear a story and go, no, there's something to it. So it's possible. there's like levels to the Sherry Panini situation. Like maybe she didn't plan for it to be a survival situation hoax. She planned for it to be, and then something happened, and once it does, she thought, hey, I could prolong this. Or it could be that it was a total planned hoax from the beginning. That's sort of what it feels like to me. Or it could be anything in between. And so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to cut it off there. I love you all. Why? Stive and why? Shamita.